So the question is, how do you make a sequel to a game series that was at its height in the 90s without changing too much, but while still making it feel like a game that belongs roughly 20 years in the future? When it comes to Crash 4, it would seem that the model for this is keep most of the underlying structure, but also change a bunch of stuff. From the very get-go, you are placed in front of a choice. Do you pick modern or retro gameplay? Retro, you collect Wumpa Fruit and lives. If you get enough Wumpa Fruit, it gives you a life, and then if you run out of lives during a level, you go back to the start. Modern is a new take on Crash Bandicoot. You get as many lives as you need to finish the level. And this is a pretty big play, because Crash 4, at least from my memory, seems to be a lot more difficult than the other Crash games used to be. But I would say that Toys for Bob have taken a more layered approach to the difficulty within this game. There's really three kinds of ways that you can play this game. You can breeze through the levels as a normal platformer, just desiring to get from start to finish. At this point, playing on retro or modern probably isn't going to make a big difference. It's really just about the skill of getting from the start to the end. You're definitely not going to be trying to get all of the boxes. You're not going to be trying to get any of the gems necessarily. You're just essentially going through the levels, maybe experiencing the story. The next level on top of that, at least from the old games, I feel like used to be you would collect all of the boxes so that you could get the gem. Then there was like a third level where you would go back and you would get things like the time trials so that you could get the relics and stuff like that if you were really hardcore. In Crash 4, there seems to be a bit more of a tiering kind of system. You can still run through everything and just casually enjoy the levels, but if you want to get all of the boxes, that's going to be a very, very big step. So there seems to be this kind of middle ground where they've split getting enough boxes to get 2 gems or 3 gems into their own kind of like little sections. So now instead of getting 1 gem in a level, you'll get 6 for different percentages of the amount of boxes, all of the boxes, a hidden gem, and a certain amount of deaths. And so with this more flexible level of difficulty within the reward structure of the levels, Crash 4 has much more difficult platforming pieces that appear off the main path of the game, as well as more difficult sections that aren't required, but will allow you to get the boxes to get the gems on the main path of the game. Aesthetically, Crash 4 is like gorgeous. It's amazing. Being able to go from the first Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 1 and then obviously work their way through PlayStation 2 to eventually land after quite a long break on this new Crash for PlayStation 4, these levels are just dripping with detail. The lighting effects, the detail in the models, it's the amount of foliage, the extra detail that you can have on the edges of things like platforms and tiered staircases, things like that, the extra detail that you get in the enemy models, everything is just soaked in gorgeousness. And you'll obviously see that throughout this video. There's a couple of different characters that you bump into, so you can obviously play as Crash or Coco. You can swap at any point for levels that are involved with Crash or Coco, so play through as either. They both have skins. There is also Torna. She gets introduced a little bit earlier in the game, and so she is a completely different character just as an example. And she has some extra little abilities that she uses that are very similar to Crash and Coco's, but at least sort of expand on the moveset a little bit. And then I've come across at least one other character that you can play as that, again, has a different moveset that kind of expands on the one that Crash and Coco have. So very similar, but not the same, and kind of riffs on that whole jump, spin, that kind of deal. In terms of gameplay, they've really brought Crash's moveset forward. Standard stuff like crouch jumping, slide jumping, sliding, and then double jumping for extra height and speed, crawling, all the usual stuff that you had in the old Crash games, as well as throughout the main story, having new mechanics added in, like wall running, where Crash can jump onto a wall and run along it for a distance and then jump off, like rope swinging, similar to many other games where you can swing on a rope and jump off, as well as climb up and down it for dismounts at different heights, and the addition of a range of new masks that give Crash the opportunity to toggle between different states. The very first mask that you get allows you to toggle between 2 kind of dimensions where certain things will be available in one state and certain things will be available in the other state, and platforming challenges will involve swapping between states mid-air or swapping between states to avoid obstacles, that kind of thing. One of the prominent new features was the rail sliding that was seen in the trailers. You can slide on rails, you can hang from them, you need to swap back and forth with it in pretty short windows of timing in order to be able to avoid obstacles. And there are also sections in both 2D left to right and also 3D forward to back, similar to the ground platforming level areas, and the front to back areas of the rail sliding sections will have a few extra options like swinging to the left and swinging to the right when you're hanging from a rail, which makes things a little bit more complicated. So there's a bunch of different kind of stuff that you can do. Later on, without spoiling too much, there is a whole adjustment on the normal formula where you unlock something that basically lets you go back and replay the levels in a different way, and that unlocks another 6 gems. So each level has, at least at the point where I'm at, 12 gems. So that's really good. There's tons of replayability there in terms of going back and doing the levels in a different kind of way. So far, I've played a few hours. I've got through about 4 of the little dimensional map rooms or areas or locations, and I can see that it's getting quite difficult. It's really ramping up its difficulty. This section here is a great example where you are needing to use the wall run mechanic, you're needing to use the jumping between different dimensional sets mechanic, you are needing to time those things all on top of each other, and this kind of difficulty almost sometimes becomes more of like playing a song on a guitar or a piano, where it becomes a little bit more about muscle memory than necessarily executing the skills on the fly and understanding what to do. Crash is a lot more complicated now than he used to be back on the PlayStation 1. There has been a concerted effort to make it more difficult to find things, so lots of boxes will be just slightly off screen. Lots of boxes will be hidden in secret areas that might be obscured by light or by other objects or by needing to be able to bounce off something that you might jump up and break, but what you should have done is jump past it and then jump back onto it to get to a different area, things like that. So there's quite often a situation where you've played through the level, you've been like, oh yeah, okay, I think I've got everything, and you get to the end and you might be down 20 or 30 boxes and you're like, I have no idea where those boxes were. Because you can get 1 gem for getting 40% of the boxes and another gem for getting 60% of the boxes and another 2 gems based purely on just the amount of boxes that you get, there's these opportunities to hide things from you without ruining your progression, because you could still get 3 gems instead of 4. And so there's been a very concerted, deliberate effort to make certain things hard to find, certain sections of the level that are off the beaten path significantly more difficult in terms of their platforming difficulty, because if you're just breezing through the level, you won't need to engage with that part. Yeah, just in general, very difficult. So what I've started doing now is just jumping through the levels without worrying too much about collecting all the boxes, because even when I was really focusing on getting all the boxes, I was still coming up short most of the time. It kind of just relieves that stress of having to like look in every corner and constantly be on the lookout for little sections that you might miss and that kind of thing, which is good. Yeah, overall, I think if you like Crash, you're going to really enjoy this game. If you just wanted more Crash Bandicoot, if you enjoyed the Insanity trilogy, or if you just wanted some new levels for Crash Bandicoot to play, you're going to really, really enjoy this. If you really like really difficult platforming, this is going to be 100% up your alley, and it's probably just a fun game if you just wanted to play a cool platformer, as long as you go in with the idea that you're not going to collect all the boxes and that sort of stuff, because it's going to be pretty difficult. So if you just wanted a casual platformer and you just wanted to kind of go along with the flow and play a couple of levels here and there, this is also going to be very, very good for you. I've gone with the impressions for this one because I don't think it's really worth me putting all the hours in the world into this game, just considering that it's Crash 4, it's more Crash. But I have done a bunch of other reviews, so feel free to go and check those out. There's a playlist on the screen right now. They follow a very different format to this video, and hopefully I will see you over there. Thanks for watching. Bye.